Hey there, wicked lovelies. I'm JJ, alone today, and you're clocking in for The Witching Hour, a podcast where we have a lot of opinions and we aren't afraid to share them. Today, I'm sitting down alone in our very fancy LA recording studio with Em Fyre to discuss her novel, How Could I Forget, and have a little author fun. So grab your elixir of choice and settle in. I'm sure we've got a lot to share. Em Fyre is a fantasy author who's born and raised in El Paso, Texas. Living in a border city with a rich culture and endless nurturing of the imagination, Em has constantly been immersed in folklore from both America and Mexico, with a rich blend of Native American storytelling as well. As a little girl, her greatest escapes included thrifting for books with her grandmother and holing up to read her treasures. In the years to follow, when books couldn't provide the escape she needed, she turned to writing, filling countless notebooks with poems, song lyrics, and short stories. As a mother, she's been given a second and third chance to be a kid again, growing and exploring alongside the children who motivate her to keep her passion for storytelling alive. Her debut novel, How Could I Forget, released June 6th, 2024, and I'm very excited to sit down with her and get into all things bookish. Thank you for taking the time to stand in for a shift of the witching hour.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Me too, now that we've got this whole audio thing figured out.
Right? I'm afraid to even laugh too loud and piss it off.
I know when it took you a second to say or to respond, I was like, oh no, it's happening again.
Right.
No, we're good. So before we get talking about anything, we love to share some hot takes on the witching hour. I want to know what your biggest book ick is.
Oh my god, my biggest book ick. That's a good one.
Mm.
Um, okay, my biggest book ick. I get so upset when you have these mating bonds that get broken.
Mm.
They piss me off to no end, and I might be a bit of a hypocrite to that end. I won't expound on that, but it drives me insane. I'm like, why do you have these soulmate bonds just to break them later? Like, why do you even bother? And it makes me so mad. That's probably my biggest ick. Everything else I can I can manage. Maybe like child abuse probably drives me up
Mhm.
the wall too a lot, but
Yeah.
yeah, those are my two icks.
That the bond or the mating one is that's such a good point. Like, why have it if you're gonna break it? Especially when usually they're rare.
Yeah. Oh, or where you have, like, a book with, like, everybody is mated to each other, and you're like, "Wait, it's supposed to be rare. Why does everyone have a mate if they're supposed to be
Mhm.
rare?" Like, that'll drive me up the
Yeah.
wall.
I
It
think
doesn't make me feel
that's a
dri
good
drive
one.
me up the wall.
That's a
Yeah.
good ick. I'm like, "What's your book ick?" And I don't even know what mine is. I know okay, no, I do, okay? And if anybody has been listening to every episode, you know that my ick is if your author name is the same size or bigger than the title
Oh, that's
on
right.
the book
I thought
cover.
I literally pulled out my book and started measuring. I'm like, "It might almost be the same size, maybe just a little bit, but the forget definitely just, like, made it bigger."
Yeah. No, I hate that. Story-wise, I hate when my biggest ick is when an author knows that they've written something good and they kind of lean into it a little bit like, "Hey, do you see what I did there?" Like, I hate that. Ugh, I hate it. It automatically makes that beautiful moment horrible.
Oh my god. So you don't like the hubris.
No. Yeah, hubris, Yeah, no. Like, listen, dad jokes and puns are my thing. I love a good, "Hey, hey, see what I did there?" Don't do it in your writing.
Don't do it. Don't point it out, just let me enjoy
Especially
it.
especially right. Let me find out that you've done that and your name is bigger than the title? Mm-mm. As time would say, meet me out behind the 7-Eleven. We have a conversation to be had here. That's a really oh my gosh, those are such good
Right?
icks. I'm here for it. Um, so what are you reading right now?
I am reading, oh my god, The Kings of Forever. Hold on, let me grab that book because the title,
Okay.
like, completely eludes me. Hold on. Once and Forever Kings: Awakening in Sapphire, and it's a queer fantasy
Ooh,
novel, that is Arthurian lore. So good. It's like Arthurian
ooh.
lore meets cyberpunk. So good.
Ooh, that sounds cool. Who's the author of that one?
Jonathan Hawker. He's an indie author.
Once
Really
and
cool.
Forever Kings. Not me Googling this so I can like
Right?
add it add it to my wish list.
Definitely should. It's really, really, really
Ooh.
good.
That's a really cool cover also.
Yep.
And you
What
know
do you
what, Jonathan? If you hear this, good on you. Your name is smaller than the title. I love
It
it.
is.
I love it. So, what made you fall in love with storytelling? I think that's the biggest question that a lot of authors want to answer, but don't always get the chance to.
What made me fall in love with it?
Mhm.
Oh, man. You know what? I think I have to put that in my brother's realm because he was a big storyteller. Like he would always come home and tell us the wildest stories. It could have been something as simple as him and his friends walked home from school and like tossed a rock in the middle of the road. But when he told the story, it was like, "Oh, the sun was so hot and we were just going on and on about how our lives just suck and blah blah blah." And we grabbed a boulder and threw it over our shoulder and like he just goes on and on. And I was like, "Wow, you tell the best stories." And I want to tell
Yeah.
stories just like you. Like just take something so simple and make it big and I just would feed off of a lot of the storytelling he did
Mhm.
and did put it into words and writing.
Well, I think that that definitely carries over into your writing. Like reading How Could I Forget? There are moments where the characters will do something that is like so simple, but the way that you describe it, it's like you're not just like watching whatever it is happen. It's like you're sitting there with it.
Thank you.
So, yeah. So I know that your kiddos greatly inspired the two kids in the book, Revna and Falcon, but did your brother like play into Falcon at all?
A little bit. There's definitely a little bit of both of them in Falcon,
Mm.
AKA Falx. But a little bit of him is also in Revna. Um,
Oh,
and maybe even Felix. No, not Felix. Felix is totally goofy. But definitely a little bit of Revna and Falcon have bits and pieces of my brother and his dramatic flares
okay.
for telling a story. Because my kids, they're really simple. They'll tell you a story and it's well, no, not my son. My son is very dramatic. But Rory's just like straight to the point when she tells me a story. She's like, whatever, this is what happened. That's it. Um, but Derek will go above and beyond in telling you a story, and so does my brother. So yeah, Falcon definitely is my brother and my son for sure.
So your son is probably going to end up being an author.
I
Like, just
want
going to
him
call it
to,
now.
but see, okay, like my son is so funny, right? Because his favorite thing to read are reference books. He's like, buy me a Guinness record or American Guinness record books or
Yeah.
encyclopedias or magazines
You
or
know what?
science magazines. I'm just like, you don't want to read this cool adventure book? He's like, no, save that silliness for someone else. I'm
Uh-huh.
just like, oh, okay.
You know what though? That's so funny because my son is 10. He's almost 11 and he does the same. He could sit in his room reading a like encyclopedia style book about bugs for hours and I don't get it. And I'll buy him all these like fantasy books. He's like, "No, can I read the book with the roaches in it?"
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a boy thing. I don't know. But he's just like, no. You know what? And he didn't like Dr. Seuss either.
Really?
He called Dr. Seuss nonsense and wanted no part of it. I'm like, well, of course it's nonsense. It's a fox and socks, bro. Like,
Right.
supposed
Right.
to enjoy that. He's like, no, no. Get that away from me.
Like, how does one not just love there's a Wocket in my pocket?
Right?
I saw a video of somebody rapping "Wocket in my pocket," and that's all I hear now. I'm like, "There's a Wocket in my pocket." So that kind of like actually has me wondering because one of the questions I wanted to ask you was who your favorite character is to write and why. But like clearly you have a lot of fun writing all of your characters.
I
But like if
do.
you had to pick a favorite, like moms don't pick favorites. But if you had to pick a favorite.
I think it's a tie between Falcon and Felix because they're
Mhm.
my silly characters. They're the ones that in the middle of the most traumatic scene, they're just like, but hey, I've got like a jammed up in my nose and can you see it? Like, they're just like
Yeah.
the weirdest things. Um, and then I love that in my character or in those two characters where it's like, I know that you're having a moment, but I feel like turning into a fox halfway and seeing if I can
Yeah.
get away with it.
Yeah, they definitely provide such good comic relief. Um, and I don't wanna, like, give any spoilers or anything, but the dynamic between Felix and his little pallies, it's such a good dynamic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
but
love that.
so before we, like, end up confusing even more people, tell us about How Could I Forget? Because 'Cause I'm over here just
Okay,
fangirling about it, but tell us about
right.
it.
So how could I forget it? It's a story about a dream walker family. Okay, and it consists of drum visas, which are the two kids that can control dreams and daydreams. They can get into people's minds and listen to their thoughts. And then the mother, who's a mare, she does nightmares and she gives people horrific sights in the middle of the day and basically puts people in line by terrifying them. So in the story, they're moving into a brand new town because they move around a lot. And in this town, for the very first time, they run into other drum visas. And they're just wondering how is it that they've come to a town where other drum visas exist. And that's where Liv, the main character, or one of the main characters, the mother, finds out that she is missing memories. She has been living a whole life missing out on who she was prior to the times that she started moving around so much. And it unravels. She finds out a lot about why her memories were stolen, who stole her memories, um, how powerful she actually is once she gets those pieces of herself back. And in the midst of it, the kids are involved. So they meet their friends. That's Felix and Jay. And, there's a little love interest, of course, because Liv runs into her old boo, Kai.
Oh, chicken.
And
Bow wow.
yeah, so but yeah, so that's what the story is about. Oh, wait, I missed the part where they can also shapeshift. So during the day when they are awake, they
Mhm.
are able to shift into different animals depending on their characteristics and their purposes as dreamwalkers. They also take on animal forms during waking hours.
So what like was it that cuz this is such a unique story and it's not like a unique story in the way that like every author interview they tell the author like this is such a unique story. Like this is genuinely a unique story. Like what was it that inspired like the whole concept because I'd never heard of any of this like drum visas and things like that prior to having read How Could I Forget?
I do take a lot of Native American storytelling into this because they do believe in dreamwalkers. They believe in guides that help you through your dreams and they help you figure out things that are going on in your life. And that's where the drum visa part came in. Of course, the word drum visa is made up. Um,
Mhm.
and that's Norse, which is completely different. But the idea of a dreamwalker comes from Native American. Um, folklore. And then even the shape-shifting, um, it was only supposed to be Liv when I started off. and it was supposed to be the terrorizing skinwalker that comes out of
Oh.
the Inde people. And so it was supposed to be that way, but then you start writing, you're like, oh, but I want the kids to be able to shapeshift because that would just be fun. And so it kind of took off from there, but it did originate a lot from Native American storytelling.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and that's also very clear. I think like now that you're saying that when Liv is working at the flower shop and like talking about the herbs and like different purposes for protection and things like that. Um I like that they all have different powers and forms. Sometimes it can be I don't know if it's frustrating when it's like so like unique when you have like a family dynamic because the relationship that Liv has with Falks and Revna is a very close one. And I think that when you find out all of the mystical, I'm trying not to spoil things, all of the mystical dynamics that are like in the family, they can kind of relate to each other a little bit more instead of it just like drawing them apart further and further.
Yeah. And that's what I kind of wanted to do because I think in fantasy that always happens. Especially for some reason, like, the mothers are always, like, decimated from the story. They're
Mhm.
either dead or evil or,
Yeah.
they just don't care. They're all about the king, so they don't care about the kids. They're
Right.
very cold. So, I thought it was fun to have a mom who, A, isn't 20 years old, she's not young,
Yeah.
she's lived a little, she's experienced life, but she's still that mother that you aspire to be, like you
Yeah.
want to protect your kids, but you also want to be a badass all on your own. And she gets to be that. She gets to be a badass and she gets to be the mom that can do like a lot of stuff. So it was fun.
Yeah, and she also like has moments though where she is cold for different reasons, but it's nice to see that dynamic with her and the kids that they see that about her and just accept it and like love her anyways instead of it again like when the mom or the dad is so distant and then it happens again it's just kind of like oh yeah of course like this is just what it is and then I think you know what one of my other icks is when authors will just repair that really quickly. And they're like everything's fine, everything's great. Here's a quick moment and like we're going to forget that that ever happened. And that doesn't happen with your story. Like you're it seems like you're very aware of the family dynamic that you're wanting to portray in it.
Yeah, I try to. And because I like this one spoiler. Can I give the one spoiler? Because
Yes.
you made me think about that. It's like when Falcon and Revna had the playlist ready for when
Mhm.
Liv has her anxiety attacks, and they know that she needs her music to calm down and breathe.
Yeah.
So they all wrote their playlist ready to just plug into mom and calm down. Um, and yeah, like
Yeah.
it makes me all teary thinking about it because I don't think kids get the credit that they sometimes need, that they pull their parents out of these really dark places. So that was one of the things that I really wanted to show with Falcon and Revna. They didn't quite understand what was going on with their mother, but they knew how to help her anyway.
Yeah, and I thought that was like a really sweet moment too because like kind of what you're saying, the parents for the most part anticipate needs all the time. And I think there's not enough awareness that kids do that too. And like, yeah, they don't always know why, but they just know that like this is going to make her feel better. And so the fact that they're all kind of working together to take care of each other, especially in this new city where none of them should know what's happening, but they've started to figure out what's happening and it just like keeps unfolding. That relationship is so important.
Yeah, definitely.
Did you do a lot of research for this book?
Yes. I did some research. I did research a lot of the folklore that I was using for the dream guides and skinwalkers and things like that. Which is hard to do because you have to actually talk to people. It's not a lot of it isn't written down, so I have to like actually talk to people, and they're like, "Well, what are you writing about, and what are you going to use
Right.
it for?" So I was like, "Well, you know." I told them about my story and what I want, and they're like, "Oh, okay." So they gave me the gist of stuff. Um, but then I also looked up a lot of Norse mythology just because
Mhm.
I used their words for the story,
Yeah.
because I wanted it to be something that's super old, the mares, the
Uh-huh.
whole thing. It's an old, 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 old being. So I wanted to use language that was really old. And Sanskrit is kind of hard to write, so
Uh-huh.
I went with
Fair.
Norse.
Yeah. Yeah. And the mare I
I went
had
with
heard of because of Norse mythology. So that's the only one that I knew. I was like, "Oh, we've got a mare here? Okay. All right."
yeah, and see, that was
Yeah.
the greatest tie-in. I was like, "Okay, so, like, there are mares." She's a little different because she doesn't actually sit on people's chests the way the Norse mare does, um,
Yeah.
but she's just as terrifying and just as evil and wicked, and so different reasons, but definitely tied into that, and I had a lot of fun, like, making up words for it and
Uh-huh.
looking up Norse words, how to conjugate it, because at first they thought I was using French words. So then I had to like really look into a different form of the word and use that for the meta and the drometa and all that and putting it together. So there was a lot of language research along with the storytelling research into it. And it was a lot of fun, but it took me a while to get it down right.
Yeah. And I think I love that you're like pulling from multiple different mythologies and backgrounds and things too. It's not just the typical I am calling myself out now. It's not just a Greek mythology retelling. Like it's
Odd.
actually very like a very unique blend. I think that's so cool.
It was I and it was by accident too because I didn't really think about pulling in Norse mythology or Norse um wording. It wasn't until after I got through my first manuscript that I was all like dream eating and then I would say they're eating things and I was like, well, it sounds like they're just eating food. Like it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. That made me
Super
choke.
confusing. Oh, sorry, don't choke, don't die on me.
That would have been like a whole other layer of confusion when you get to the coconut cake part of the story.
Yeah.
I straight up would have been like, "What is happening right now? I don't
Yeah.
know."
Are we
Yeah,
eating cake? Are we eating memories? Are we what are yeah, it would have been so confusing, so that's where
yeah,
that played in, and it was fun, but yeah, it came in because of the language shift that I had to do.
yeah. No, I love that. And okay, I have to say, just mentioning the coconut cake thing, you do this like thing that I hate, so I love it. Which is for a second, I sympathize with Jackson for a second,
Yeah.
and then I don't. And then I don't. And like the whole time, I'm like hating him, hating him, hating him. Oh, okay. Well, maybe. Nope. What an asshole. Like for the whole entire book. And I love it and hate it at the same time. Like, I love that you do not give a redeeming quality to a person who should not have redemption.
Yeah, no, um, yeah, that one was tough, actually, because at the end, I so I don't know if you remember when I got on Discord and I was crying about the ending that I put in. I was all like, "I don't want people to hate him. He's my
Yeah.
villain, and it's my baby." And I was, like, this close to rewriting it to make him redeemable, but then I was like, "Hell no, he did all this other stuff." Like, I would be so mad if she just forgave him. I was like, "Nope, not happening."
Yeah. Yeah. No, I honestly, as somebody who like had a hand in editing your book, I would have been like, excuse me, we need to have a chat here because no, this is
Yeah.
wrong. Let's fix this.
Yeah, yeah, I get you, trust me. I was just like I was really careful about it because and then okay, so to be sensitive to it, and it is domestic violence, but it is
Yeah.
common with the victim to be able to sympathize and later forgive it and excuse it. And I wanted to kind of show that a little bit, but then at the end, she's like, "No, I remember what he did. Like, I can't excuse it." And
Yeah,
ended on
and
that
and
note.
it is a weird kind of dynamic too that you have with that because she I think from my perspective reading through it, Liv is first and foremost a protector, and it's really difficult because I think that she does acknowledge the broken parts of Jackson that may be worth protecting, but he's such a piece of shit. Like, he's so horrible that I think it's really important that that dynamic is there between them, but that she ultimately doesn't, like, try to fix him or make it better because she kind of has that perspective change of focusing on the kids and then
Yeah,
on herself finally, which is, like, also really cool to see Liv really, like, come into her own as a
yeah.
person outside of being a mom.
Yes, exactly. Like she gets that oomph back in her, which is
Yeah.
cool again because we see it in fantasy all the time with 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds. But, as a reader now, I'm like, okay, well, I'm not 19 and 20 years old. I want a fantasy book that tells me that I can still pick myself up and be a badass.
Mhm.
Um,
Yes.
so getting Liv to do this at that age, I'm like, haha, yes, she is still a badass. She's not a decrepit crone that's on her way out of the world. No, she is still fierce and she's still got a lot of fight in her.
Yeah. Well, and you said crone because Sarah J. Maas
Sarah
kinda
J. Maas.
offended you a little bit.
Girl, I screamed when I saw that she's like the human queen, the ancient 30-year-old crone. I literally grabbed my book and yeeted it down the
Yeah,
hallway. I was like, "How dare you!"
right. Well, and I feel like that's kind of just left over from our stigma in society of, like, 30 is so old, and it's really not. I remember thinking 30 was so old when I was a kid, and then the closer you get to it, the more you're like, "I'm still basically 12. Like, what are you talking about? Why do I have so much responsibility right now?"
Right? I still feel like a total rebel when I have cornflakes for dinner, dude. Like, trust me, I am not
Yes.
old.
Right, right. Those you're like, "I had cake for breakfast, and I'm feeling
Right.
good about it. I hope my mom doesn't find out."
Just don't tell her that.
Yeah. So, like, what do you love the most about the story that you're telling in How Could I Forget? Like, what is the thing that you not only love the most, but hope that people take away from it?
Man, what do I love the most? I love the most, um, in that there is magic found in the most mundane and simple things. Um, like her gardening, how she takes that to another level of protection and it's a simple houseplant, but it's magic to them. It protects them. Um, the act of just sleeping and dreaming, that's magic, you know? Um, and I like that. I like that, there's shape-shifting and the kids have fun at the pool doing magical things, it's not something that's too otherworldly, it almost feels plausible. Like if I look hard enough, I wonder if I saw, I don't know, a man sprout a trunk from his face. I don't know, like it makes you just
Yeah,
stop and pause and be like, wait, like, is it really fantasy or can that possibly be happening? Because um, it's magic in the ordinary.
yeah, yeah. The part with the kids in the pool is almost like when you're playing mermaids or something as kids, and, like, you're imagining all these creatures and everything like that. I think that's
Yeah.
really cool. It's like magic is everywhere.
Yeah.
Not to
So
get
then,
all cheesy, but yes. So, are you allowed to tell us anything about the sequel?
um, let's see. There's a lot of
You're
new
like, "It's happening."
characters. It's happening. There's a
Ooh,
lot of new characters. I may have icked my own book, if
it's
that's
your own book.
yeah, I might have icked my own book. I don't know. I haven't decided yet.
Uh-huh.
Um, but there's definitely there's a lot going on. I didn't think that I was gonna write past the second book, but the more I get into the story, the more I'm like, I'm gonna have to break this one into 2 different books because it's gonna be a lot. Um,
Ooh.
yeah,
I'm not
um,
mad about it. Go on.
it
Go
it
on.
is it's great. Jackson really am I allowed to say fuck?
Yes.
Well, Jackson really F's it up. I'm just saying. He did a lot of things that we weren't aware that he was doing because he wasn't a big part of the story. I mean, he was, but he wasn't, like, physically there. It was, like, memories of him, right? But we find out that while he was not under Liv's supervision, he was off doing stupid things that created a big snowball effect of trouble that now Liv has to
So
clean
like
up because
we get like backstory in this one.
yeah, we get backstory.
Ooh.
We find out what he was up to while Liv was running away.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
That's exciting. I'm like, can I have the whole thing now, please?
Uh,
Please and thank you.
well, you can have, like, the half of it that I have. What him and Kai were up to, you both of them were just these dudes. These dudes.
Listen, I like
Oh.
Kai, but there's a part of me that's also like, there's something about you. And I don't know if I fully like you yet.
You're probably wise to feel that way.
Oh great. Is
Probably
he
wise.
sometimes I get little finger vibes from him.
You know, it's because okay, so one of the things that I do wanna capture in the story is that not all good people do good things. That there are
Okay.
people that are good that just do bad things because they think they're doing the right thing. Um,
Oh.
so I kinda wanted to capture that, and I is the person he's a good guy, but he does very misguided things thinking he's right about it.
Ooh.
And Liv,
Just when I thought I couldn't
unfortunately,
get more
falls for it.
excited.
Yeah.
Ugh. Live. Girl.
She does, she's like,
We're
"I'm
gonna have a talk.
American, he's a Visa, maybe he's got more perspective on being good than I do." But,
Yeah.
she gets her memories back, and she gets this ugh, she's just she's queen in the next book.
Oh my god, I'm
Like,
so excited. She's already queen.
oh, no, but she, like, ascends higher. I don't even know how she goes from queen to goddess. I know you say Revna is goddess, but Liv ascends, trust me.
Oh my gosh. I'm gonna be reading your manuscript, just messaging you the whole time, like, mother's mothering. It happened.
Uh-huh.
Well, this is a new segment. No, just kidding. So I did ask a bunch of our authors for just questions that they have. And so I want to ask you some author advice because you're an author. So hopefully you have some advice.
So, let's
Um,
see.
yeah, right? We're about to find out. The first question I think is one that is so relatable. How do you deal with writer's block?
Oh, so, I am a big, big fan of Pinterest, okay?
Uh,
And I have all these boards, and art and music really drive my creativity, so when I can't piece a story together, I will flip through Pinterest for hours until I start seeing the scenes the way I wanna see them, and then
mm,
I'm listening to my music, and as you can tell on my playlist, music is, like, a big thing in the stories. And a lot of the songs that are on there is because those songs probably triggered the whole scene.
mhm,
Um, and so that's how I deal with writer's block is just I jump into a different art media, I guess you can say.
uh-huh,
It's not me creating it, but sometimes what other people have created really helps my brain just kind of unwind and see
mhm.
things through a different lens.
Do you ever just find yourself, like, if you have writer's block in one scene, kind of jumping around in the story, or do you tend to just write linearly?
Oh, no, I definitely jump around. I don't think I can write linearly even when I don't have writer's block. So, I'm a bit of a quilter, if you will,
Mm.
because I will see this scene and I'm like, "This has to happen between these characters." So now I have to figure out how to get from here to here. And that's
Ooh,
how
okay.
a lot of my stories have happened where I know big chunks of what I wanna write, and then I just have to connect the dots.
I like that. That makes sense. Like, kind of taking a break from one and jumping around, that might keep it a little fresher also.
A
Do
little
you
bit,
ever,
but
like, go back from one of those jumps and be like, "I damn, I wrote this?" Like, when you come back to what you were blocked on?
yes.
Yeah.
Like, when I was asking you for quotes, like, what do I quote in, like, my countdown thing? You're like, "Ooh, use this." Was like, "Ooh, that's a good one. I wrote that." It's just like
You're, like, putting parentheses all over your new manuscript, like, "Look what I did.
Yeah.
I did that."
I'm like I'm the anti, "You see what I did there?" Because I'm like, "Oh, I didn't even realize I did that."
I wrote that? Was I awake?
Like, "That sounds so good. Who wrote that? Oh, it's in my story. Never mind."
You're like, "Well, actually, I do know what I'm doing here."
Yeah,
Quiet
but sometimes
dog.
I like hyperfixate, so there's, like, certain scenes, and they're probably the more creative ones where a lot of the magic is happening. Those are
Mm.
the ones that I wrote first and had to, like, connect the dots to.
Oh, and, like, kind of fit them in like a puzzle.
Yeah.
That
Like, the
feels like it would
ending
be
to
hard,
How Could I
though.
Forget? Well, see, the
Uh-huh.
ending to How Could I Forget, I wrote almost immediately after I started the story.
Oh,
So,
wow.
like, I knew ahead of time how that was gonna happen, which was crazy
Yeah.
because, you know, how does little Falcon do something like that, you know? I'm just like,
Yeah, dude, that was insane. If you're
yeah.
listening, go read it. For real. Just go read it. Like,
Yeah.
it is a book that will live rent free in your head. Can confirm. And I've read it multiple times,
Yeah.
partly because it was my job, but also because I enjoyed it.
Oh.
So how do you deal with negativity, like on social media or just haters in the world? Like, how do you deal with that? And how do you? This is a question that actually a lot of people asked.
Um, well, I haven't gotten any negative feedback on my book yet, so thankfully,
Mhm.
I haven't had to deal with that part. I have had, imposter syndrome, which happened, like, right before the release. It hit me so hard. Like,
Yeah.
I was about to be like, "No, let's push it back, I can't do this yet." But, I mean, I jumped on Discord and I shared it with people, and there's a lot of people that will cheer you on, and if you don't have people to cheer you on, you need to get a community that's gonna cheer you on. I'm lucky because Spellbound has that. We have that community where we're like, "No, dude, what are you talking about? You're such a great writer. You've got this. You're
Yeah.
queen," And then I'm like, "Oh, okay, okay." And I'm sure
Yeah.
when I have negative feedback or whatever, I'm gonna have friends and we're gonna sit down and, talk shit like normal people. And then I'll feel
Yeah.
better. We'll be like, whatever,
Right.
that's not a
Right.
good thing.
Yeah. Well, and I guess too, like at the end of the day, if you do have a supportive community around you, like do the negative things really matter?
Exactly.
My mentee B from the other day would say yes, they do. But me right now, no, no, no.
They
Like
don't.
haters
Yeah.
are gonna hate. And I feel like it's a question that a lot of not just authors, but people in general ask because social media has us all so way too connected.
Yeah, there's an
Yeah.
overshare of information. Like, just because you have the podium doesn't mean you have to say stuff. Like, but they do.
Yeah.
They will
I
and they do,
mean,
and you have to stand back and be like, did it help me? Did it feed me any new information? And do I even care? And if it's
Yeah.
no to any of those questions, then leave it. Leave it there where it was. That wasn't meant for you. It was because they had to say it and they said it and move on.
That's such a good point.
Hey everyone, it's editing time. Don't be alarmed. Just real quick, wanted to pop in. There was some really weird audio situation happening during the section of the pod. So I'm just going to give you some quick context for what you're about to hear. Um, JJ is moving on to a rapid fire question round. So that's what's happening. So enjoy. Tee.
Slow burn or instant payoff?
Slow burn. I love slow burns.
Yeah. How to get you emotionally invested.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
You have to
You slow burn? What?
think about
I have no idea. Enemies to lovers or friends to lovers?
enemies to lovers. Love it.
Mhm.
Love
I'm
it.
here
I
for it.
love well, okay, as a writer, I think I do better friends to lovers,
Mhm.
but as a reader, I love enemies to lovers.
Oh, that's interesting. That's
Yeah.
very interesting. Maybe you write them better because you know what you don't like in a friends to lovers, like reading it. So in writing it, you're like, let me show you how this is done, please.
Maybe. You know what? But then as a writer too, I'm like, you're my enemy and I will hate you until the day I die. Like as a writer, I will hold that grudge through the whole writing. And I'm like, no, 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 sir. I remember what you did back in chapter 2, and we do not forgive you. Go fuck yourself.
That's so funny because I'll be like, that happened in chapter 2? What? I love you now.
Do that
Which
growly
is
thing
why
again.
which is why I'm writing a book about Hades cuz I'm like, you damned somebody in chapter 2. Can we fuck in chapter 7?
Let's
I
just,
need to
you know
know.
what? I don't even care what you did in chapter 2. Yeah.
Right? So, are you a mood reader or do you do like are you a mood reader or do you do TBR?
I am a huge mood reader, like a huge
Mhm.
mood reader. I can't read happy books if I'm sad. Like, I want a book that's gonna make me cry it all out so I can feel better and then jump into something else. Like, or I'll just be on a romance streak where I don't want to read
Mhm.
anything but romance novels. I don't know. Yeah,
That's fair.
it's just big old mood reader.
Let's try this again. Coffee or tea?
Oh, oh, see this one? It
Mhm.
depends. Usually I like coffee, but when I'm reading, I tend to change up my drink. Sometimes I just want a big
Ooh.
old soda with a lot of ice, but
Mhm.
sometimes I want a chai or a London fog, depending on what I'm
Yes.
reading. Like if I'm reading a mystery, London fog, because the London fog, that's mysterious.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know.
That's
I'm a
fair.
mood drinker too.
Beach read has to have coconut Dr. Pepper.
Oh, yes, exactly. With coconut cake while you're at it.
Out of a coconut. You're just gonna
Just
do all the
all
way.
coconut.
Okay, and then our last one, vampires or werewolves?
Vampires. I mean, they're the epitome of romance, and when they say they love you forever, they can mean it, okay? They will love you
They'll never
forever.
die.
They'll never die. Exactly. And if somebody kills you, they're burning down the world for you. I mean,
That's true.
a werewolf would never do that. He'll
No, a
just
werewolf
howl at the moon and beat at his chest and curl up under a rock and die. What vampires do.
whimper.
No.
Yeah. All right, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
I'm here for it. Okay, so last question. If you could sit down and have dinner with any 3 fictional characters, who would it be?
Oh, very fictional. Okay. Now, when we say we're gonna have dinner, is it like as soon as we're done eating, we're done. Or
No,
I don't know.
you have dessert, hang out for a little bit, maybe
Okay, so
have lunch the next
definitely
day.
Rysandon. He's definitely
Mhm.
on the menu, um, for
He's
having
on the
dinner.
menu. Yeah. Interesting. You do like a
Yes.
lot of eating. Excellent. Resend on the menu as a guest, quote
Rysand is on the
unquote.
menu as a guest. Yeah, I mean, he's invited to dinner.
Love it. All right, Resand, King of the Night Court.
Yes.
Mm,
Um, let me see. Jude from, The Cruel Prince. I would totally wanna
okay.
sit down and have dinner with her. I feel like she would be so much fun, and she would probably give me a lot of ideas to write cool stuff.
Okay.
And let's see, last, the third one has to be a good one. I would wanna have dinner with Liv.
Oh, I
I think
love
she would be
that.
fun. Yeah, I would. With my own character, I would wanna have dinner with her and just, like, chat it up, and then I'd give her a list of people to hit up later.
Oh, I love that. That
Yeah,
especially.
right?
Can I give you a list to give
Yes,
to
give
her?
me a list. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Excellent.
Of course. You know what? I'll just
Okay.
take down a couple of people who need some work done, like,
Perfect.
slide it over to her and be like, "Hey, a couple of friends of mine.
Yeah.
It's been some really mean people in our lives."
Yeah. I think you already know some of the people that would be on my list, so you could just write them down.
Just do, 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 do. There you go, Liv.
Yeah. I'll be sending you the list. You're like, "I already got them. 'Em. We're good."
Ah,
Goodness.
man.
All right. Thank you, as always, for clocking in for the witching hour. To share your thoughts and ask Em any questions, head over to Instagram and our YouTube account, as well as Em's Instagram. A link to purchase Em's novel, How Could I Forget, can be found in the show notes, along with links to her social media. And I'll see you again next shift with Sarah and Time. Bye.